Welcome to another review of First Minister's Questions, and from Holyrood. So it's a Scottish affair. The regular team are here. Alex Grant, Phil Ettridge, myself, Stuart Lockhead, and Norrie Stewart. I tell you what, we have a small announcement. We might be going on the radio soon. In fact, we will be. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be live on the radio, but we'll fill you in a bit more detail next week.
I thought you were going to say you were pregnant.
I wish.
Again?
There's two good lines there. Again, and I wish.
If I was a UKIP member, I'd call you a slut, so carry on.
You slag.
Right then, guys. Yes, so things are changing, let's just put it that way. Anyway, so we watched a First Minister's Questions, which we knew was going to be in the light, clearly reflecting what happened yesterday with the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, making a statement about sovereignty, which would be seized upon by the Unionists to say that, well, what you obviously don't really want full independence. Anyway, bearing in mind that nobody's actually said this today, not even in private, that the majority view in Scotland, according to all the polls, is that most people want Devo Max, not independence, and that might have might have been the background to what was happening yesterday and today. Let's start with Alex. He's always got plenty to say, hasn't he?
I've always got plenty to say. Well, I have to say, I give, before we even get to the voting, I give Eck 10 out of 10 today, because I actually think he said all of the things which, if it had been my wish yesterday, if the mainstream media had actually done a proper journalistic job on what was said by Carney and then what was said by the Unionists, the points that had to be made, Alex made them absolutely 100%. The sad thing is, do most of the people out on the street just pay attention to what the Daily Record or the Daily Telegraph, depending on their inclination?
Daily Mail even worse.
Daily Mail even worse. God, I wouldn't insult most folks saying they read that, but there you go. So I think he made the point absolutely clearly, and I think your reference to Devo Max is one of the fundamental platforms of what the SNP, what Alex Salmond's strategy has been, in my opinion, is not to frighten the horses. And there's a lot of debate about, well, if you don't frighten the horses...
Yeah, it's also to capture the Devo Max vote.
It is, and as you said, we know if you were offered Devo Max, which would be, you get most of the powers except this and this, people would vote for it tomorrow. And I actually think what he's effectively done is a form of Devo Max which is much more significant than what is being offered as Devo Max, because the classic Devo Max is, you know, all tax and spend excluding defence and foreign affairs, which is the sort of thing that the Channel Islands and Alan Mann and Mumble Grunt, all these guys.
Yes.
So, you know, I think he actually he made the point, and if he can continue to make that point and get that message across to the electorate, what Carney said, whose mentor was Professor Mirrlees, he made that point. It's all been said already.
Make sure he gets his points in early, doesn't he, does Alex?
He does.
No, you're right. I mean, to some extent, the issues are, I think, that was the unspoken issue, is like, right from the very start of this campaign for independence, is that the Devo Max is the preferred option. It's not on the menu, it's not on offer, and therefore capturing the Devo Max voters will be the key to winning the referendum, and that's what's been going on quite clearly. Phil, what did you think about today?
Again, I'll have to concur with Alec that he should get 10 out of 10. But the surprise for me was Joanne. I mean, she's not particularly inspiring, but today she was just... Oh, she was worse than that. I mean, I was sitting listening, I thought, sorry, this person can't possibly be a shadow First Minister, where nuclear weapons, all your social services, all your tax raising powers, charging all the assets in that country, everything, are all we things. Is that we things like her brain?
For a start.
I mean, really, is that her IQ?
Well, let him come in.
She missed an absolute open goal there, by the way. All the tax raising powers. There is no way, if we end up with a currency agreement, we'll have control over all the tax raising powers. I'll tell you right now, corporation tax will be a no-no. You're going to have to side with what? Come on. There's no way they're giving that away.
No, because there are other taxes.
well,
that,
does anybody
can I just
come
go
up
back
with
on
it?
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Which was an overgo she missed.
well, yeah, yes and no, but the whole point is she's sitting there, and that's why I says that she's even more appalling. That she's sitting there, and even more today, her face glued to this bit of paper, which some backroom numpty writes up, and she just doesn't have the news to think for herself.
Don't know.
I think
News, now, whatever.
She has a news. She writes
Yeah,
emails every week.
but I mean, it's actually scary. I mean, what would she do if she was ever like, if she was the first minister? Oh, I need to see the numpty in the back room before I can make a
She
decision.
won't. She'd be stuffed. She's not competent
She
to be the
doesn't-
first
she doesn't
minister.
She's
very
not.
well,
It's
apparently.
scary.
She started. I've noticed there are articles appearing now, drip by drip, in the print press, talking about what we were talking about. She's not the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland.
Oh,
she's
she isn't.
just a numpty.
She's always been there. She's
Anus.
Sarwar,
What a stupid name. Imagine letting your child go to primary school with a name called Anus.
That's
Yeah,
racist.
Just say if you
But
come
that's-
from Pakistan,
that
we're
is
living
fine.
in Pakistan. When you named your child,
Yeah.
Yeah, but you would change your name when you went to primary school.
Well, that's another story.
Anyway, he's the man in charge.
We can't talk.
'Cause
He's worse.
he's the man in charge in Scotland, quite clearly. He does what he's told by fucking Ed Miliband. She's got no power at all.
No, I think
God help us if he is the man in charge.
He is
I
the
think
man.
If
I
he's
think
the power behind the throne, I'm sorry, I'd rather have.
Anus
You don't
is.
see that.
No, he's a loose cannon. He was picked. I mean,
Do you mean loose
he
cannon?
was- He's
Yeah.
a loose cannon.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
Yeah,
a loose cannon
hang
at
on a
all.
minute,
I
hang
think
on.
he is the man that's...
Ed Balls would have said exactly what she said. He would just have done it better.
Better.
To be
Yeah.
quite frank, the strategy has to be, and it is a double-edged strategy. This isn't the independence. Now, I can tell you, there are researchers sitting in a back room somewhere telling the SNP, you know the problem with your strategy at the minute is you keep saying independence and it frightens people. If you could actually say something else. I mean, this is literally.
Well, that's why we're
the
talking
word-
about Diva
the
Man's
word
being a popular
exactly, but the
choice.
So if you want to say it's no independence, there's going to be folk sitting in government going, really? Oh, well, that's a bit reassuring, isn't it? Because and that's one of the because the line that you really should
This is a very
take,
important point, I think.
the line you should take actually is, and even this is difficult. Do you think the people of England, who are 90% of the equation in this discussion, are going to be happy to be in this deal, standing behind you as the bank of last resort? Now, I happen to believe the people of England won't get a choice, because somebody was asked that on Newsnight last night. The people of England won't get a choice because the Chancellor knows that if he recommends that we don't have a currency union, England will pay a high price for it, because the markets will force them to accept the consequences of the effect on the English or the UK balance of payments. So they can't say it. Look, this strategy is perfect. It is perfect.
See,
I
I kind of agree with you. My problem is that the more they bang on about giving up sovereignty, and it's already happened in the mainstream press, they're already talking about, yeah, but England's going to have to give up sovereignty.
Yeah.
As soon as you start talking about loss of sovereignty in England, all the Looney Tunes start jumping out of the woodwork. UKIP,
I know.
the Conservatives themselves.
But that's not bad.
And that's
No,
why we want to
But
get away.
that, the day after independence, is going to factor into currency union. We might end up without one
No, but
because of that.
I don't. No, I don't. No, look, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, but it is true. Governments don't govern independently. Markets dictate to them.
Yeah.
Well, we
a
do
lot of
now,
their
but
actions.
yeah, exactly.
And they always have done, but it's particularly in your face now. Now, UKIP, who aren't in charge of the government, can stand up and do all that stuff, and it will give any government, Labour or Conservative, will be Conservative initially, a really hard time. But the fact is, I'm absolutely certain that if we vote yes, the negotiations will be sensible and practical, because they always are.
I agree with you, and because it makes sense. It's in everybody's best interest to
Exactly.
do a
I
deal.
mean, that was what I took out of Carney's speech. Was essentially right. There are going to be things you don't like.
Yeah.
well, apart from that as
You
well, there's
You're not going to get a free hand, but in order for this to work, there are going to have to be strict rules. And it was quite funny, because what I took out of the southern-northern divide in Europe that he was on about was the northern, sensible, disciplined countries are getting on quite fine with the
With the
currency
euro,
union
yeah.
because they obey the fucking rules and
Yeah.
they didn't tell lies to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to bear in mind that the reason that, for example, Greece in particular was allowed to behave badly was because of the Germans. The Germans decided it was more important politically to have them inside.
They didn't have to tell lies. They knew they knew they didn't qualify according to the rules, but it suited their agenda. And it's not the thing you say about that is the Germans are having to pay for the decision to let the Greeks in. But the one thing I would say about Carney's presentation that I have an issue with, and again, no journalist no journalist period, actually did his job properly. He should have said, well, yeah, we understand, umpteen countries in a currency union with a disparity between Greece and Germany, but that's not what we're talking about, which of course is what
Can I go with?
they keep trying to say.
It's your turn.
Oh, yeah. Well, just going back to what you're saying about Greece, I mean, that was a fuss about nothing really. Less than 1% of the GDP of the EU. You've only got to look at America to see a currency union that works there on 50 states.
Yeah.
And there's states there that are complete and utter basket cases, and they have been for decades. So that was just anti-Europe, people happy to go. That was just, a lot of that was manufactured, and currency speculators and everything can come in and make money out of that.
That was quite a good thing on STV last night, because she pointed that out. Apparently, the discrepancy between Alabama or Alberta is 40%.
Yeah. And California at one time was, I think, is one of the richest, one of the biggest economies on the planet.
Yeah.
But
it still went bust.
Yeah, and it went bust. And the biggest debtor and the biggest is the states.
Yeah,
but going back to what you were saying about common sense prevailing. I'm going to be slightly sarcastic here. Do you think George Osborne is going to upset this marvellous recovery of the economy by being awkward when it comes to...
Exactly.
Of course he's not.
I can't afford to.
I think the bubble will last that long, man.
Well,
They will. They'll just get another air pump.
But going back to your point about Alberta, this is important though. Texas or California.
Alberta's
or whatever.
actually in Canada.
Yeah,
but
but it's all cowboys.
I'm not fucking stupid. Whether it's Canada or the USA, the fact is the currency union there is one country. I mean, what people tend to forget in this whole conversation is you're suggesting a currency union. That's new. No, it's not. We're in one. The fact is we're in one with a set of rules which are totally restrictive. What we're talking about is being in one that has a set of relatively relaxed rules. Thank you very much.
No, but
that's the point.
Yeah, with representation on the board of the Bank of England that decides.
Well, I know, but the truth is you have to concede that your voice on that will be a small voice. But the fact is, like the man said, all of these other levers where you will have totally under your control. Some levers you won't. But the truth is, if you've been in Europe in the euro, you would have been in the same situation. Where's the beef? The one thing that they can use here is, are you expecting the English to bail you out if you get into trouble? Because that's the big rock to throw in the pool.
That's what they keep suggesting and implying.
Because
that underpinned half of what was said publicly on the mainstream news yesterday. Was that this banking of last resort? Lender of last resort.
That's the big
issue. And the reason they kept the pro-unionists kept asking that question, because it reminds people of the stupid idea that RBS and HBOS were Scottish banks.
And were bailed out.
Yeah, they were bailed out by England.
And it reinforces the idea that the Daily Mail's been peddling for a century, which is Scotland is subsidised by England. It gives you now they won't utter it. You mean you want to continue to be subsidised by England? No, we're not subsidised by England. But the partnership we have with England is such that it's in our mutual interest.
All right then.
Just struck me there. It's the two of you used to be watching that new programme, The Musketeers.
Not seen that yet.
That's crap.
I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Well, look, I tell you, I'm suggesting let's try.
Can I just go on to
just
to some of the other ones? I mean, we'll be talking about anything else other than
we haven't
First
even
Ministers. Ruth Davidson. I'll be kind and then just call her a disingenuous.
What was she come up with that upset everybody?
A disingenuous lying Tory bastard.
I couldn't hear her question.
No, somebody was ranting. But also, but as well, Murdo Fraser. I mean,
he always makes a tit of himself when he asks a question.
And then, but actually, it was the one with John Wilson. you know, Miss Ali has gone off, you know, the judicial complaints officer or commissioner, whatever they call
Yeah,
it,
I think that's
with a budget of £2,000 a year, which basically everybody's telling her to get lost. It sounded like, you know, she was just some token. Look, we've got a commissioner. I mean, she's got a reasonable wage, but
So who's
she's
at
got
fault?
a cupboard to sit in.
All right. So who's at fault there? Her or the system?
The frigging government.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's this government
And
as well.
that is an area of this particular government.
She had
Wait a
one
minute. No,
complaint,
I don't
less
want
than
to
one
say.
complaint a week.
Huh?
She had less than one complaint.
Yeah,
a
but
week.
complaints
no,
you get, she didn't
I'm
have
not-
any
my
budget
point-
or anything to do.
All right.
She
My
wasn't-
point is this: I feel that this SNP government has been far too authoritarian,
Yeah.
and especially when it comes to things like
Right,
justice.
okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give her a department of 6 people and £1.5 million a year
No.
to deal with 43 complaints. And then when the Labour Party come back and say, or the Conservatives more likely, why are you giving this department of 7 people £2.5 million a year to deal with one complaint?
Right, no,
Right, that's
all
right,
right,
52,
all right.
but less. So what you're actually giving her
43
is, no,
complaints.
it's about 70 pence a week to deal with those complaints. Sorry,
So?
no, you should get some kind of budget.
Right, come on, gentlemen.
that's
Can
it.
I,
But anyway,
right, no, let me just, as a politics,
just-
as a
I just thought-
as a politics student, let me point out that the notion of the independence of the judiciary is a very touchy area, shall we say?
Yeah, and
You
it's-
don't want to be able to. You don't want judges to be able to be voted out.
No,
as they are in
no,
America.
no, but the one thing
Well,
you
and
don't
the
want is a woman telling them what to do. This
I'm not sure that's true, because in this country, the way I see it, you know,
I just like to get.
once you're a judge, you can't get them out.
Well, that unfortunately.
And
no,
they
I-
can't, and you can't
wait
get
a minute. I was about to
investigations
give the
done.
other point of view. Yes.
And they live on another
Look at me,
planet.
look at him, he's speaking.
We all are, so we're all right.
I'm no speaking.
Well, let's have a wee scoring and then we can have a blather afterwards.
But can I
There's
just
lots
ask
to
you
talk
what?
about.
Jackie Bailey, come on then.
Here's the one that wants to cause
Jackie
problems.
again,
Jackie Bailey.
What did she ask about?
I'm
Anything
give Jackie
important?
Bailey a score.
She didn't do anything.
Joseph Roundtree
Actually,
before.
it's getting to the point where we should be giving Jackie Bailey a score.
Because she's nearly.
Okay then,
But she
scores.
just opened her mouth.
Loud
That's all
belly.
she did.
Joseph Roundtree, she was trying to highlight the fact that the
Poverty in
SNP...
Scotland.
No, she was trying to highlight the fact that the Labour Party have forced the SNP to sit down and discuss how they're going to get round the rules to cover the full 50 million for the bedroom tax.
Well, we know what that's all about. The fact
Well,
is, it's
that's all about
it's a
Labour
simple thing. If the SNP government in Scotland, any government come to Scotland, come up with money to mitigate the effects of the bedroom tax, they're just accepting that means we're getting a cut in the money that comes from
So
Westminster.
why don't
That's
they,
a simple thing.
Why don't they say it?
They do.
They do now
have
and
said
again.
Well, he could have said it today and he didn't.
He said it half a dozen times. Basically, why should we subsidise the cuts from Westminster?
But they have been trying.
No, that's not a good enough answer.
They have been trying to
What
raise
he
money.
always adds on is by cutting other services.
Well, yeah, but he should have said it again this week. And he had
That's
a
a
go
fair
at it.
point. You mind, the boy's got a fair
No.
point. He just takes too many words to say it.
My eye's going to go in a minute.
Sorry.
You can do one eye.
Nice and
See
sparky.
you with a patch.
Right, well, let's run through the scoring business
Right.
and then but we've got
Right.
more to say after that.
Right.
We'll start with you, actually,
All right,
Laurie, just for a change.
Yeah, Alex did well. Give him 9 because you can always improve. Joanne, two.
must admit,
Wasn't
she
impressed.
really failed to
Ruth
do that, didn't she?
Davidson.
No.
Nobody mentioned Salmon getting the boots into her about Lang's supposed comments in the House of Lords.
What was this about?
He must have issued the speech.
Yeah, he issued it yesterday.
And basically what he said is,
Who?
a vote for independence is an insult to our war dead over the years. That's basically...
Who was this?
Lang.
Lang.
That well
Ian
known.
Lang.
That man who helped
You
get
remember
the,
Ian
get,
Lang.
the, get the
Oh.
Tory party out of Scotland.
Yeah.
No, him.
Ian Lang, who...
Who's a Scottish
who's-
story.
Who used exactly the same line, if my memory serves me, in the devolution debate.
Probably.
Yeah, I think he did, yeah.
Okay.
Ruth Davidson,
Inbred.
I'll give her 2, but
Yeah.
What
as-
for?
basically because I want to see what Michelle Moon can do with her. I
Aye.
don't want to throw her out yet. Presiding officer, I had a bit of Rami.
And he can't do this
Dealt
on
with it.
radio.
You'll be
She
in
popped
the,
up a few
you'll be in
times.
the Daily Mail soon if you're not
Order,
careful.
order.
I hope somebody doorsteps me.
Don't start.
I
Get on
I
with
hope
it.
somebody doorsteps me. Come and see me.
Come on, Phil. What are you
Right.
scoring?
I'll give. I thought his performance was 10, but you never give anybody 10, so I'll give him 9. Joanne was. I'm sorry, can I give her anything? She missed opportunities.
Missed-
She did it the
missed.
whole way. Sorry, I can't give her anything.
She just missed all the goals today. We're in the real world.
And she was just incompetent. But Ruth Davidson was a lying Tory bastard. Right, because I can't say that on
So,
radio.
you
We
say
give her- right?
giving Ruth minus
Maybe.
what?
I'll just give her a 0 as well. She's not worth even looking. The presiding officer, yeah, she was shouting and she did kind of keep order. So, yeah, I'll give her 7.
Oh, that's a good one. I was about to give her a bonus. Right, I'll give you scores before Alex, because Alex has got goodness knows, he normally comes first. Right, Alex, I have to agree, I would go 10, but I'll go 9. I think he was pretty good. I'm not going to bother telling you where he went wrong, but, well, I know where he went wrong, because he's still hanging on to that plan A and plan B, but that's a different thing.
Nah.
That's not about his performance and what he did or didn't do. I think he did very well. He brought up a few key points. Childcare, he got attacked on childcare by Joanne. Anyway, let's move on to Joanne. So Joanne, oh God, she's really bad this week, wasn't she? She attacked the First Minister. It must have seemed like a good idea, sat there in the wee office deciding what they were going
All
to
these
talk
things
about.
are wee. All these wee things.
These wee things, these wee issues, childcare, Trident,
Social security, nuclear
social
weapons,
security,
illegal
poverty,
war,
bedroom tax.
illegal
These are wee
wars.
things. People are not killing themselves over. No, yes they are. No, she's rubbish too. That's the lowest I've ever given Joanne Lamont. I mean, she's got she's got a responsible job. Ruth, well, I think she got shot to pieces. Let me check. What did she say?
Well,
Ceding of sovereignty.
I can't even.
Previous Secretary of State. Oh yes, no, before she even got going, Salmon savaged her, stabbed her right between the
Boobs.
about this guy Ian Lang.
Boobs.
Boobs, whatever he'd said. So no, I'm giving her
Sounded
1.
rather sexist.
She's only getting 1. She's getting nothing else. She's not worth it. Willie, because Willie wasn't there. I'd give him 5 because he wasn't there.
Willie's not getting a score.
The presiding officer, I agree. I think she did a bit more than usual because all she had to do was chirp up more often and they kind of keep quiet. So I'll give her a 6, better than an average.
Eck.
I could have done better than Joanne Lamont did, and I'm not a Labour supporter. So I agree. The scoring I'll give you is exactly the same as Phil for the lot.
9 for Alex.
Yeah,
0.
2 zeros. Because whatever could be done in lack of control as a consequence of currency union was not done effectively by either of them. And an answer on the line question was shit. And I mean, if Sinclair is the one writing the scripts, because she's too much of a numpty to say anything, Lamont's performance was pathetic. I mean, I could have sat in the toilet and come up with a better attack than that.
So that's a good question. Can I just ask? Can you imagine the guy? We all know it's Paul Sinclair that writes her
Yeah,
speeches and everything.
yeah.
So, what's he sitting there in the gallery watching, thinking, "God, she's awful today." Do you think? I'd love to know. Wouldn't you like to be inside her
No.
his head?
No, because he's the one that gave me the script to be awful. I mean, when she describes everything that makes up a state, and as wee things, where you go out and cause the deaths of 1 million Iraqis, that's the wee
Yeah, I know,
thing.
but Stuart's right. The guy who's giving her the advice, if he's sitting in the gallery listening,
She's
to
not delivering
Alex
what
come
he
in-
wants very well.
No, well, hang on a minute. No, she read his script. Now, but does he actually sit there and believe that script worked? I mean, we're biased.
No,
because we're not
you have
supporters of
to
hers.
you have to understand the world he lives in. He lives in a world populated by Labour people. He rarely goes outside of it. So people say, and that was a great one-liner. And she had a couple of one-liners today. One of them was quite good, but I can't remember what it was. So it could have been
Because
that.
just
I
get
found
lost
it. I
in-
probably wrote it down
Right,
somewhere.
A rehearsed one-liner.
Yeah, but she's delivering them quite well. But she does this spew. So they get lost. But the Labour guys bang the desks, cheer,
No.
and that's what he hears. He doesn't look how it's affecting the
Well,
SNP.
to be honest, it doesn't matter what he thinks anyway.
Yeah.
What
And
did
what
the
was,
peop-
what
did
was
the
this
people
story
out
about the
there think?
Philippines? That Alex Salmond is like a Japanese
Oh, that was-
soldier.
Yeah,
like,
well, well,
stuck
that's-
in the
Oh no,
Philippines
that's the
20
guy that was stuck in the Philippines in the jungle
20 years
for,
up.
for
What was that
30
about?
years.
It was a
30
Japanese
years.
soldier
What?
who kept fighting.
Well, I mean, there were quite a few, in fact.
He's in
Yeah.
constant denial of the facts, and he's just going on and on and on like the Japanese guy in the jungle. I mean,
Who thought that? Do you think that was Paul Sinclair?
It wasn't her.
Probably,
She
yeah.
probably doesn't even know what the Philippines
Hey,
is.
cat.
Guys, here's a worrying thing. You've been banging on you two about democracy in the Parliament, which I think is just a wee bit like wishful thinking, but never
Okay,
mind.
fair enough.
But today's scores, right? 36 for Salmond, Joanne 4, Ruth 3. They had what should have been an open goal,
Yeah, they did.
because you could have spun anything out of what Carney said, as we've seen. All sides have had a good thing out. I've actually been really quite impressed with the way the SNP dealt with it. You know, it was a grown-up speech that dealt with facts. We think he was right. And they can point to lots of information that was put out long before he came to Edinburgh that said more or less what he
Yeah,
said.
it's in there is no finance white paper.
But if you're looking at as well,
But if you look at Joanne and Ruth, totally ineffective.
Ineffective.
Totally ineffective.
but it's for two different reasons though. Because Ruth is looking for a, well, she'll move down south,
Yeah,
a
she'll-
safe seat.
safe-
She's just saying it's a party hack, and she's
looking for a
supporting the
Conservative
present
seat in the
government.
south of England.
Whereas Joanne is like a lot of them. You've got a few now because of the upsets at the last election. The people that got in that they didn't, and the established numpties were out. And that's going right back to before '99, when they decided if you on a good day you were going to get second raters. Anybody with an independent train of mind in there, anybody that would be prepared to cause, like Canavan, you're not getting on, all the rest of
We're
this.
talking about the Labour Party.
Yeah, the Labour Party. And
Central control of
that's
who gets
centre
elected.
control from Control Brown and Blair, and it made sure that it was this wee tune council that you got up there.
I'm intrigued by this idea that Ruth Davidson thinks she would even get near a selection list.
Yeah, but
Why on earth, if
You
they
don't
get
think so?
independent,
Yeah, but
why would they take her down there?
No, but why are we talking about that? That's bull. Yeah, because parties they've taken enough Scots down there and given them seats.
But she's no a shining light.
No, well, and
She's barely
no,
average. If
that,
she is
well, that's the
average.
point I would make to him. You see, I don't give a toss about whether she gets offered a seat in England, and I don't think it's relevant. She ought to be like anybody with a brain, trying to put up the best performance. And if you want to put up the best performance to attack what happened yesterday, you need to sit there and say, right, what's the best line of attack? What's his likely response to be? Okay, we better not go that way. We'll have a go at him at this. Now, you know, neither of them actually took the opportunity to have a go. Now, the cynics might say, because the trouble is, we watch this program in
And follow this
isolation.
train of thought can be hard at times.
Well, yeah, but the cynics might say, unlike you and me, the population ain't watching this. The only thing they see about this is what they read in the Daily Record. And if the Daily Record said Joanne Lamont attacked Salmond for the following reasons and doesn't elaborate on him saying, are you telling me that this is trivial, that's trivial? Well, they won't. So in that respect, it maybe doesn't matter, and they think that's fine.
That is what
I can't-
happens in the real world.
Couldn't argue with you if the Herald could give Joanne Lamont
Debater of the year.
There's something sadly wrong.
Well,
It's obviously that they're not watching it. That's for one thing. They're listening to it on the radio and have some idea that.
No,
but I mean,
it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that. Look,
Yeah,
the Herald gives these prizes at a dinner, and when they give the prizes at the dinner, if they don't give somebody from the Labour Party something
Yeah.
significant, the Labour Party
Won't
won't
talk to
turn
them.
up. Well, they won't
That's a
turn
very
up.
good point. Well, gentlemen, I have to say that has been a quite fiery, interesting review of what's happened in
sorry
the
state
chamber.
of Scottish politics at the present, I suppose.
Well, sorry state. Well, we'll be back next week, but after that, we'll be probably telling you to listen to us on the radio. We will still be
Give them the radio station.
Black Diamond, 107.8 FM. You can hear it all over Edinburgh in half a five.
Oh, great.
And thank you for paying attention, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.